A university director admits a researcher was misquoted about downplaying Chinese espionage threats. But was she really? What you're about to witness isn't just another campus debate about academic freedom. It's a congressional hearing that exposes how America's most prestigious universities became ground zero for one of the most sophisticated intelligence operations in modern history. While students thought they were just doing research, foreign adversaries were systematically extracting billion-dollar technologies. The question that should terrify every American: how many more are still operating in plain sight? Context: the front line of an invisible war. This hearing appears routine on the surface. But what's really being debated is how America's technological superiority is being quietly eroded. Anne Lin's 2022 statement, the University of Michigan China Studies Director, claiming the FBI has overstated the threat of technology transfer from China, isn't just a comment. It's a symbol of dangerous institutional blindness toward national security. The congressman's opening question is sharp. Does this statement reflect the university's view? The answer triggers a familiar defense. She was misunderstood, misquoted. But the real question remains: why is someone with such views still heading a China Studies Center? Concept breakdown. What is research security? Research security is a multi-layered defense system. First layer, human intelligence. Who's researching what? Who they're collaborating with? Which countries they're traveling to? The expanded background checks are critical here. Second layer, data security. Chinese intelligence agencies, MSS and PLA, don't steal directly. They systematically collect data disguised as legitimate academic collaboration. Third layer, conflict of interest management. A professor can receive US government funding while secretly participating in Chinese talent programs. This isn't just unethical, it's criminal covert agency. Michigan's M-Inform system and
witnesses under the 5-minute rule. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes. President Grasso, the current director of the University of Michigan's Center for Chinese Studies, Anne Lin, was quoted in 2022 saying this. She said that she believes the FBI, and I quote, has overstated the threat of technology transfer, unquote, from China because of the type of research that's published. Does this statement by Anne Lin reflect the university's view of threats to research security? And if not, what tangible policy reforms have been made at the university, particularly in light of the multiple incidents last summer?
Thank you, Congressman. My understanding of that statement by Anne Lin is that she has told others that she was misquoted in the statement. Nonetheless, that statement is something that we don't agree with at all. We find threats from overseas to be a considerable point of interest for us that we need to protect against. Research security is absolutely fundamental to our mission. A few years ago, there was National Security Presidential Memorandum number 33 that was put out with regard to protecting our national interests and security. We actually hired the authors of that memo to help us build a stronger and more robust research program. We had a strong program and it continues to get better. For example, let me just tell you some of the things that we do. We've expanded our background checks. We've increased our channels of communications with federal agencies. We have improved our data security and physical security. We require mandatory training of all of our researchers based on NSF Secure, the NSF Secure website, which is, we follow the best practices that NSF has put out. We prevent conflicts of interest through a process where everyone is required to disclose, and we use a form called M-Inform. We have a comprehensive research security program that also includes risk management for international collaborations. And I might mention that we use NSF's policy on managing international collaborations that was put together with the Jasons and MITRE Corporation. And just as a point of interest, my brother was president of MITRE Corporation, so national security is incredibly important to both of us in our family. and we are very committed to national security.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Farley, some argue that research security efforts risk stereotyping and targeting those who come from different racial or ethnic backgrounds. How do research security efforts at the University of Florida protect faculty and students with all backgrounds?
Thank you for that question. At the University of Florida, our new hire screening of researchers and research support positions occurs for all new hires, regardless of national origin or citizenship. We are committed to hiring the best and the brightest at the University of Florida, so we use a risk-based review process to review education, affiliations, employment history, and ongoing affiliations, as well as the nature of the research as we conduct those reviews. We also review all travel, regardless of destination, and all of those things happen within my office and are overseen by senior leadership.
Comprehensive, common sense, it appears. Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you could write a book about your freshman and sophomore years at Stanford. In your testimony, you mentioned Section 117 of the Higher Education Act as well as deterrent, which this committee moved across the House floor last year. How does the public transparency in Section 117 help you as a citizen and a journalist hold institutions accountable?
Thank you. I think the Section 117 funding portal has already been extremely valuable to myself and my writers as journalists. I think being able to see where Stanford's money is coming from is really important, and I think that we have a right to access that information.
Okay. It certainly gives a target for further information to be gained, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I wish you well. My time has expired, so I now recognize the gentlelady from Oregon, Ms. Bonamici, for her 5 minutes of questioning. I move to represent Representative Takano from California for your 5 minutes of questioning.
And NSF secure training sound impressive, but the critical question, are these retroactive? What about people already inside? Systemic impact, the academic freedom versus national security dilemma. Universities were founded on unlimited knowledge sharing, but this openness means open source intelligence for hostile states. Why is this dangerous? Dual-use technologies, CRISPR for cancer treatment becomes biological weapons. Quantum computing becomes code-breaking systems. Thousand Talents program. China secretly funds thousands of foreign scientists to transfer research. Charles Lieber, former Harvard chemistry chair, was convicted for concealing Chinese payments. Resource drain. When researchers face espionage suspicion, work stops. American innovation slows. The problem is distinguishing real threats from paranoia. Florida's risk-based review, regardless of national origin, attempts balance. This matters because the FBI's China initiative was shut down in 2022 for low conviction rates and racism accusations. The security theater problem, Michigan's administrator lists impressive measures, expanded background checks, federal communication, NSF secure training, M-informed disclosure, international collaboration risk management. But here's the critical oversight. When were these implemented? The phrase multiple incidents last summer reveals these are reactive, not proactive. This is security theater, vigilance after the breach. How many years without protection? How much intellectual property already compromised? How many researchers with undisclosed conflicts still active? The screening paradox. Florida's Ms. Farley states, we screen all new hires regardless of national origin or citizenship. But this creates a fundamental tension. Screen everyone equally, and you either underprotect by treating all countries as equal risks, overinvest in low-risk individuals to avoid profiling. Threats aren't evenly distributed. China represents the most significant threat per US intelligence. Russia, Iran, North Korea follow. Canada and UK, virtually zero. When Florida says we review all travel regardless of destination, it sounds equitable. But does Toronto really warrant the same scrutiny as Shenzhen? Political correctness collides with security pragmatism. Universities fear lawsuits and bad press, so they create systems that appear neutral but may be ineffective against actual threats. The journalism angle. Section 117, as Sunlight student journalist Miss Johnson highlights Section 117, a Higher Education Act provision forcing universities to disclose foreign funding over $250,000. Elite schools like Stanford, MIT, Harvard concealed millions from China, Qatar, Saudi Arabia for years. A 2020 federal investigation revealed universities failed to report over $6 billion in funding. Johnson states, being able to see where Stanford's money is coming from is really important. But here's the paradox. The portal shows raw data, names, amounts, without context. Is $500,000 from a Chinese company legitimate research or covert influence? Average citizens can't distinguish. This feeds simplistic narratives like all Chinese funding is bad. The congressman asks, it gives a target for further information, doesn't it? This reveals Section 117's true purpose. It's not a complete answer, it's an investigation starting point. Journalists take the data and dig deeper through FOIA requests and interviews. Connecting dots bureaucrats prefer remain unconnected. The MITRE detail, personal stakes. The Michigan administrator mentions his brother was MITRE Corporation president, a federally funded national security research center. He states, national security is incredibly important to both of us in our family. This serves multiple purposes: credibility appeal, deflection from institutional failure, subtle status signal. But here's what it reveals. Even someone with direct family ties to national security, who should understand these threats intimately, presided over an institution where a China studies director publicly downplayed those very threats. If someone with his background couldn't prevent this, what hope do less connected institutions have? Solution and lessons. A three-tiered protection model. 1. Proactive, not reactive security were Michigan's measures implemented after last summer's incidents. Security must come before scandal, not after. 2. Cultural intelligence. Florida's review all travel regardless of destination reduces profiling risk but may waste resources. Risk-based approaches must focus where highest threats exist. 3. Institutional courage over political comfort. The real test. Enforcing policies even when controversial. When prominent researchers have undisclosed Chinese funding, will universities act, or will reputation concerns lead to quiet settlements? Closing. The democracy test. What makes this hearing significant isn't the specific policies, it's what it reveals about institutional rot at the highest levels of American education. These aren't small colleges making mistakes. These universities train future presidents, Supreme Court justices, Fortune 500 CEOs. They're supposed to be bastions of critical thinking and ethical rigor. Yet when confronted with security failures, their response is indistinguishable from any bureaucracy caught misbehaving. Deny, deflect, promise reform, hope the news cycle moves on. The question for every American: if our most elite institutions can't protect their own research from foreign exploitation, what makes us think they can protect our democracy, our economy, or our future? Democracy lives and dies in moments like these, not in dramatic confrontations, but in the slow accumulation of institutional failures that nobody wants to name. The real threat isn't just what China is stealing, it's what we're losing by refusing to see it clearly.